Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And during this segment of the show, I have family law attorney Daryl Weinman, President and Managing Partner at Weinman Associates PC, and calling in all the way from Austin, Texas. Now, Daryl, an authority in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about a very interesting topic. Daryl's going to be discussing controlling your fears and emotions during the divorce process so you can keep your legal fees at a minimum and minimize the scars to your children. Now, that sounds like a very interesting topic, and I can't wait to bring her onto the show. So if you are one of those many unfortunate divorcing couples in the Austin, Texas area, it might be a good idea to take a break, log out of Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, or anything else that you may be doing which may cause a distraction. Grab yourself a notepad and pen and get ready to take some notes and listen in to what Daryl has to share with us for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. So let's not keep her waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Daryl.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. Okay, Daryl, let's make the best use of our time and jump feet first in. Briefly, share what kinds of people you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
So I'm a family law attorney, which includes divorce, but also there are people who have children who have never been married. And so I do child custody cases as well between people who've not been married, or modifying visitation schedules or custody arrangements after people have divorced. So those people who either are getting divorced and have no children, or people who have children in or out of marriage and are splitting up.
Okay, Daryl, so it goes without saying that anything you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. Now, I'm sure there are many, many misconceptions that you come across while you're out there helping those divorcing couples. However, what's the most common misconception you come across while you're out there working on a day-to-day basis?
Well, there's a few. One is that I get a lot of people who come in who say that this is going to be easy and amicable and we're all in agreement. And of course, everybody wants to be that way. And ideally, it would be great if people were. But when they are splitting up and there's children and money involved, there's a lack of trust. There's a lot of suspicion. There's hurt feelings. And they generally haven't even talked out the really emotional issues with each other yet. So they may have agreed, yes, we're going to split up, we're going to share the kids, we'll somehow split the estate, but they haven't gotten down to the details. And so people come in and think, this is going to be pretty easy, we're mature, responsible adults, we'll be able to do this. And when they start talking the details and hit the hot buttons of the other person, things can spiral out of control. As they spiral out of control, their fees go up and up and up. The process drags out. So being able to control all of those emotions, the fears, from both sides can kind of keep all that at a minimum. And they actually can get to a more amicable divorce. But they, a lot of times, start from a position of, I don't trust the other person, I'm so suspicious, I have to strike first. And it's a bad position to take.
Okay, so based on what you just shared with us then, Daryl, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, share an example of how you've helped someone who came to you with those challenges, those misconceptions you just described, and what kind of transformational results you were able to gain for them.
I get a lot of people who come in. Of course, I do both the person who's initiating the divorce and the person who may be surprised by the split. So especially in adultery cases, I have people who come in who are very hurt, they're very angry, and there may not be a lot of money involved, there may not be kids involved, but they are so hurt and angry. They want to take this to trial. They want to tell the judge all about what this other person did to them and how their feelings are hurt. And I have to talk them down from that and tell them that will gain nothing from that, that it may make them feel better to scream and yell about what this person did to them and how their feelings are hurt. But honestly, the family courts hear this all the time. They don't care. They don't want to hear it. It's not going to benefit them in court. It's not going to benefit them financially. And it's the things that get said in court, and particularly when they have children together that they are going to have to raise together long term, the things that get said can never be unheard. So people who just want to be vindicated or want to out the other person and is going to cost them a lot of money to do that, to go down to the courthouse, prepare for trial, and so on, and they will gain nothing from it. It's a waste of their money and everybody's time. And so those are, and I have to really talk them down from that because they are very hurt, and understandably they're hurt. But going public and telling the world and telling the court is not benefiting anyone. And I try to explain to them that there are other ways they need to handle their emotions and their anger, and that holding on to anger is like taking a poison pill and expecting the other person to die. It isn't hurting them. It's only hurting the person who's, so upset. And so I try to guide them through other ways to deal with their hurt feelings, their anger. I'll talk to them about maybe getting some therapy, getting support groups, getting just a support system within their family and friends. But that, going to court and telling the world from the witness stand is really not benefiting anybody.
Right, so let's just look at that from a different perspective then, Daryl. Allow me to play devil's advocate for a moment. Now, yes, it does them no good going into the scenario of the divorce court and letting all their emotions out and, trying to convince the court that they've been unfairly treated. However, why does the court system not care about all of that? I mean, you talk them down from it, you help them with it, but let's look at it from that perspective.
Well,
why don't they care?
Well, there's two parts to a divorce case. There's, if they have children together, there's the child portion, and they will always look from the child portion of the case is always best interest of the child.
Right.
So from that perspective, if one parent has done something really hurtful, if there's domestic violence, if they are neglectful, if they are treating the other parent badly, calling them names, or if they are cheating and they are cheating with someone who's not a good person, those all affect the kids. And the judges do care about that. The court system absolutely cares about that. They do want to protect the children. And so from that perspective, it is important to tell the court, the other person is behaving this way. Dad yells at mom and calls her names in front of the kids, or mom has a new boyfriend and is spending more time with the boyfriend than the kids. Those are important, and they do care about that. But when it's just the other part of the divorce, the property division, the courts, or at least in community property states like Texas, the courts look at a marriage like it's a business partnership. And when you married this other person, you took on a business partner. And when the partnership is breaking up, you divide the partnership assets. Now, there are lots of factors that the court can take into consideration in terms of dividing the assets. If one person was wasting assets, spending on a girlfriend or boyfriend, hiding assets, depleting assets, there are things that the court will take into consideration. But, if the marriage has been breaking down for a long time and one person has done things in the wrong order, basically starting a new relationship before ending this one, they're not going to punish them too harshly. It's a business partnership that's breaking up, and everyone needs to take their share of the partnership and move on. And they don't look at the breaking up of a partnership as emotional. So people who just want to air their grievances and vent on the stand are it may make them feel better, but it's not actually benefiting them any other way. And when there are kids involved and you start dragging in neighbors, family, friends, teachers, doctors, and put all these people on the stand, you've now created so much conflict and animosity in your life, in their lives, in your kids' lives. It makes it uncomfortable for everyone. So being able to step back and look at what is really best for your kids, what is really the best financial picture for yourself long term, rather than just wanting to air your grievances, is the best way to handle it. Slinging mud in the courtroom is just, things can't be unheard. And when family members are sitting there and you're just bad mouthing the other person, it makes for a very difficult long-term relationship with all these people.
Fantastic. Thanks for clarifying that for us, Daryl. That's going to be really helpful for the listeners out there. Now, again, as a reminder, today's topic is controlling your fears and emotions during the divorce process so you can keep your legal fees at a minimum and minimize the scars to your children. Now, with that in mind, and for those divorcing couples out there in the Austin, Texas area, then, Daryl, what's the most common but unknown pitfall that you'd like them to keep in mind, regardless of what kind of situation they find themselves in, regardless of how they feel?
Managing fear is so important. And what I usually find, and I guess I'll take this from a sexist standpoint, where man being the primary breadwinner and wife being primary caregiver to the
be
children.
Careful now, Daryl. Be careful.
I'm just going to use that as an example. Obviously,
okay.
that's
No
not
problem.
always the case. But as an example, if the husband is the primary breadwinner, and the wife is not making money at all, maybe she's a stay-at-home mom or just does not have as lucrative a job as he does, her biggest fear is going to be financial. When she comes into my office, whether she's initiating the divorce or not, she's terrified about what is my post-divorce financial picture going to look like. Particularly in Texas, it's very difficult to get alimony. And so depending on how big the estate is, she may be terrified, how am I going to survive? How am I going to pay my bills? Where am I going to live? And that's her biggest fear. And then the men, or the person who's not the primary caregiver to the children, their biggest fear is that the other person's going to be so angry and vindictive, they're going to turn the children against them or keep the children from them, or they're just not going to have a close relationship with their children. And those tend to be the two biggest fears. So when I've got whichever of those people in my office, I try to explain to them what the other person's fears are, and that if we can reassure that person that they're going to be financially okay, they are going to have a good relationship with their kids, you can settle down emotions from the beginning. So it kind of depends on their when they come in and what the situation is, but sometimes I'll have them send a proposed in Texas, we don't use separation agreements. We use temporary orders, but like a separation agreement, send over a proposal saying, look, this is what I'm proposing up front. This is how I'm proposing we share the kids, and this is how I'm proposing we share the money. And they may not jump on it and sign it right away, but at least they will see, I'm not trying to take all your money, and I'm not trying to keep you from your kids. And if you can calm the fears on both sides, you can get to a settlement a lot easier and keep them away from the courthouse, get things done quickly so that it doesn't drag out. The higher the conflict and the longer it drags out, the not only more expensive it is for everybody, but the more damage it's causing to everybody, to both of the parties and their kids and their extended family and so on. So calming the fears right up front to say, look, I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm not trying to put you on the street, can really go a long, long way.
A personal question then, Daryl. How many years have you been a family law attorney?
24 years this month.
Wow. So in those 24 years and leading up to today, this present moment in time, when you wake up in the morning and you have a full day ahead of you, helping those divorcing couples out there in the Texas, Austin, Texas area, how do you feel about that day ahead then, Daryl? Is this something that you still feel very passionate about? Is it something that you still enjoy?
You know, family law is so emotional, and people are definitely at their worst, and their emotions run high and low. I deal with people who are crying, who are yelling, who are just a mess, and it can be really hard on me to get up in the morning and look forward to going to work. But what I do enjoy is at the end of the case, getting people back on the road to whatever their new life is going to be. And so really talking during their case about this is a good plan for you. And sometimes I need to get them with financial planners and therapists to help them through. But when I can get to the end of the case and feel like they are on a good path, they have enough money to survive, they know what their future looks like, it's really satisfying. I mean, I feel good about end results where the client is on a good path, and they've got a good plan, and their kids are doing well, and I feel like if I've made a difference in their lives, it makes a big difference. I did have a woman call me about 2 summers ago. She had to track me down. She said she called me from South Carolina. She said that I don't know if you remember me, but you handled a case for me back in 1995. Back then, I was also doing some criminal defense, and she said that I got her out of jail. That CPS had taken her children, and when we went to court the first time, the judge told her she wouldn't get her kids back for about 2 years. She said, I got her kids back for her in 6 months. Her husband was in prison, so I also did her divorce for her. She said that her children are now grown. She has grandchildren, and she feels like I changed her life and made a difference in her life. And she was just calling all these years later to thank me and to tell me that. And she said, I have the life I always hoped for, and I give you full credit. And so
Awesome.
It's really, that stuff is really satisfying. So when I get really frustrated with my job, I think about things like that.
Yeah, you've got to count those wins, haven't you? I mean, if you could see me now, Daryl, I'm sat here with a big smile like a Cheshire cat here, because those are the kinds of stories why we're doing this particular series of Let's Talk Divorce. It's for people like yourself to air your voice, to give you a platform to share those stories, to share those experiences, because behind it all, the victims are the children. And
right.
I myself, I'm a child of divorce. My research team have informed me that you yourself are a child of divorce. You've gone through that, and you've gone through divorce yourself. So this is it's just amazing that you share that kind of story, not just based on the experiences that you have, but it shows the longevity and the kind of results that you can bring for people out there. So for any listener who's listening to this right now, that's going to be really, really useful for them to hear that, and especially if they have children. So while we're on that topic of your background, let's just dig a little bit deeper into that. And if you could just share very briefly a little bit more about your background in terms of your education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law.
So I grew up in New York. I went to Colgate University undergrad and New York Law School, where I graduated in 1994. I moved to Texas in 1994 and have worked here ever since. I've always had my own practice. In the beginning, I did criminal defense and family law just to pay the bills. But by 2000, I became board certified. Texas has a board certification process. I became board certified in family law so that I'm recognized as a family law specialist by the state. And since 2000, I've only done family law. And I've always only had my own practice, and it has grown over the years. I now have 2 board-certified paralegals. I have 2 associate attorneys, and it's growing. And That's all we do in this office is family law.
Fantastic. So in your office, it sounds to me that you have a 360-degree approach to helping the clients that you help.
Yeah, we try to take a full service approach rather than just helping them legally. We try to get them with financial planners, therapists, career counselors, to get them on a path post-divorce where they have hope for a different future, a new future.
Daryl, I have a feeling I could sit here and talk with you all day and you would never run out of interesting things to share on the topic of divorce. However, it is radio and we are running out of time. So if I could just ask you just to, let's say close your eyes for a moment and picture the kinds of divorcing couples who come to you for your help and they're wanting to know more about controlling the fear that you spoke about. They're wanting to know more about controlling their emotions during the divorce process and keeping their legal fees at a minimum while minimizing the scars to their children. Now, with that picture in mind then, Daryl, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we move on to our last question for today?
Well, I try to remind people that divorce is like a death in that you go through the same emotional phases. There's denial, depression, anger, grief, and then acceptance, and that the two people are not in the same phases at the same time, and the person who is initiating divorce has usually gone through all the phases and is at acceptance, whereas the other person may be starting from the beginning and is at denial. And so I counsel the clients in my office to be respectful of where the other person is. You know, I may have someone in my office who has been mentally done with their marriage for 5 years, but the other person may be just starting from scratch and is still in denial. And so, you know, managing the psychology of it and managing their emotions and telling them, I know you wanted to be divorced yesterday, but let's take it slow and let the other person catch up, and then we'll be able to get a reasonable settlement. That I try to counsel them through all that and what to expect that they're going to be feeling, what their kids are going to be feeling. And I do share a lot of my personal life where my parents divorced when I was 14. When I was married for 14 years, I was a stepmom. Now I'm divorced. I've got teenage boys. I can tell them what I went through and that I can really relate to them. And this is try to give them the ideal way to get something settled rather than slinging mud in court, which sometimes needs to happen, but if we can avoid it, that's the best way to go.
Well, Daryl, you've been such a great guest today. So if there is someone out there who feels they want to know more about controlling their fears and their emotions during the divorce process, and they want to know more about keeping their legal fees at a minimum while minimizing the scars to their children, if that's the case, then Daryl, how would they find you? How would they be able to get in touch with you?
Well, my website is WeinmanFamilyLaw.com, and Weinman is spelled WEINMAN, FamilyLaw.com. I've also written a book. The book that I wrote is right now directed toward women. I am hoping to come out with the men's version in August, but it's called Your Post-Divorce Journey Back to Yourself, and it is basically how to heal and recover and look to your new future post-separation, post-divorce, and that's available on Amazon. And my phone number is 512-472-4040.
Fantastic. So whether you're one of those people who like to tune in while you're driving in your car, cruising down the highway, or maybe you're listening in from home or working out in the gym and tuning in on a personal headset, whatever the case may be, that's all we have time for today. Again, that was family law attorney Daryl Weinman. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Daryl. You certainly have demonstrated without a doubt that you're a true educator and advocate for your clients' success. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me on the show.
You are so welcome, Daryl. And even more importantly, Daryl, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, the listener, for joining us on this very insightful and informative discussion with one of the leading family law attorneys in the Austin, Texas area today. Again, don't forget her name. That was Daryl Weinman. Make sure you check her out, give her a call, send her an email, look her up on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll find her there. Also, whatever you do, I'm sure you're going to be in good hands. So that's it, folks. Again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander. We'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.